Creative writing mean to you? I'm Kauffman, and I'm on a mission to connect with every creative writer in the world. And I need your help. The world is constantly changing, which is why it's our duty, no, it's our responsibility to inspire creativity. My creative writing tips, tricks, and strategies are gonna help you become a better writer, so that way you can beat procrastination. Do you have a story that you're dying to tell, but you don't know what to do next? I can actually help you craft a story today. Welcome to Kauffman Writes, your daily creative writing live stream for inspiration, motivation, strategy, discussion, advice, and maybe a little bit of procrastination. But don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Welcome, you found yourself at Fiction Character Friday. And wow, have I been waiting for today? For those of you who've been tuning along with my journey, 110 days of writing for 30 minutes a day. As you've seen from last Scarecrow, you know I love character development. I have probably developed well over, I want to say somewhere between 20 to 40 characters in the rough draft of last Scarecrow alone. Now, are all of them compelling? No, because it's still during the rough draft, but that's fine because the goal of a rough draft isn't be incredible. The goal of the rough draft is have fun and enjoy the process. So welcome, my friends. We're going to be hopping into our fiction character Friday. I'm going to get into, we'll have a fun discussion around it. And then I'm going to do my 30-minute writing sprint afterwards. So stick around if you feel like you really need to get some writing done to start off your weekend right, and you can join me on a 30-minute sprint, or you can kick back and read along as I continue on the last Scarecrow. All right, let's see. Looks like we got welcome to the stream, Bobicus. Welcome, my friend. I will though tell everybody, don't trust me with anything. Basically a big blabbermouth. All right, so if you're on the stream, don't let Bobicus know that you're procrastinating, or else it's going to be like a Facebook update next. Hey, what's up, Stephanie? Welcome. Atomic in the house. John, my friend. John, I saw that you sent me that email. I just have not had the chance to respond to it yet, but glad you're here. Happy Friday, you crazy live stream freak. I am. You know what? I'm going strong. If you asked me a year ago, Kauffman, do you think that you could live stream every single day for a year? I would have said, heck no. But here I am. We continue to exceed our expectations. And I am telling you that by live streaming this consistency process of just writing every day, it has changed my entire view around my own process and around what's possible for the writing process. So very, very cool. I'm enjoying this experience very, very much. Let's see. Excellent. And that's just some of that weaponized determination. Weaponized determination. That's actually, it's like a great catch line right there. Kauffman, he has weaponized determination to write for 30 minutes a day for the rest of his life. I was like, okay, I don't know if we'll go that far. We'll see how long it can last. I know I got the year at least. Hey, welcome, Marta. Glad you're able to make it to the stream. Welcome. All right, so let's hop straight into. Before the character development, by the way, if you're watching this on the replay, don't worry, I got you covered. You can actually skip ahead to the part of the video that you want to watch, whether you want to stick around here and watch the character development deep dive, or if you want to jump ahead to the writing sprint or some discussions in between. So the chapters will be added on the live replay experience. I got you covered. All right, and back in the comments, let me pull up my screen. It's like I gotta get a new paper here. All right, beautiful. So I will get this here. I'll throw myself up here, and I'll make sure that y'all can see it. I was like, yeah, I like this view for this one a little bit better. So as I've been thinking about how do I make these these streams as engaging as possible, while I can also have a lot of fun. I've been breaking up each day into its own specialized topic as compared to just doing a variety every day. And so far, I've actually really been enjoying the process. And it sounds like y'all have been enjoying it as well, based off the response I've been receiving from the videos this week or from the live streams. So today, I'm super excited. Character development. I love character development. Oh, I love it so much. I love creating characters. I love the idea. I love the brainstorming. I love the writing, the development, the editing, and watching a character fully form from a kernel of an idea all the way to that final finished embodiment of something that started from nothing that feels like it's a real believable individual. It's like not a human being, an individual. All the characters in my stories are animals. So what's that process? Now, everybody has their own process, absolutely. But what I like to do is I like to give just a very bare bones, very easy way to go about how do you go about developing a character if character development isn't your forte. And that's all right. By the way, if you're here in the stream and character development is like your jam, you love creating characters, drop a comment, let me know, because I know there's a couple of you who have some really, really cool characters, either from stories that I've read so far or just from chatting. All right. So when I think about character development, I think about a couple steps. So first off, I want to think of what is my, oh, that needs to be bigger. There we go. So I want to think about what do I want my character to achieve? What do I want to achieve? Sure. What do I want my character to achieve? Because at the heart, your character is serving a role to tell a greater story. Now, the great thing is your character gets to evolve through the process and they get to a point where hopefully they're telling their own story because you get to know them and understand them so well that when you're trying to come up with like, oh, what do they say in this scene? You know what to say because their idioms, either in your mind or through practice, become natural. So the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what do you want your character to achieve? And I guess I could specifically say for your story. We're going to assume this is for whatever story you're working on. And I'll give you a step-by-step example as I've been working on Last Scarecrow. So you could follow the same framework for any character that you're developing. Absolutely. I'm primarily focusing on creating a protagonist because that's the most work and the most development and the most time you're generally going to spend because it's their story, right? So for Last Scarecrow, ask myself, like, what do I want to achieve with Last Scarecrow? I wanted to achieve a story about a character that has very, very good values, very good morals, thrown into a world that is very completely opposite, very opposing morals. I also want him to be I wanted him to be a big pushover to show that he's not very well adapted to this world that he's in. I want him to achieve a very weak character arc to begin with as his power and his likability grows. I believe that his weakness creates a lot of save the cat moments early on for him to be more of a liked character, and that because he consistently loses, that gets the viewer to want to join the journey with him. And then by the time he has the power increase and by the time you learn all the things, he's liked enough that then you're already along for the journey. So I want my character to achieve a weak start mindset. That's just something I came up with. And I want him to end off being, let's say, relatively powerful. Right. And I also want him to have to make a monumental decision that's going to affect the state of the entire world that I'm creating. So has to make a decision for the entire world. Now, these are just a couple of random things, random ideas that have come to mind as I was developing my character. Whatever story you're writing, if you're working on, let's say you're developing a thriller, right? And your protagonist is a serial killer, you're probably going to want to ask things like, what do you want your serial killer to be, the type who like kills everybody? Do you want them to serve the purpose of only like not killing certain people? Do you want them to die in the end? Like it's a great one, right? Because morally killing is wrong. Society views killing as wrong. And does a character who kills people, do they deserve to die? That's a great question to ask yourself if you're writing a story about a serial killer. So you always want to refine the character questions to whatever the story is that you're trying to tell. This is a great part. The reason I start with the ideology behind the character instead of the character itself, because you want to keep in mind what purpose the character serves. Now, of course, this can absolutely evolve, but this is a good ground framework. Let's see. John Maynard Sheffield, a transgender prostitute living in Milwaukee in the late 1980s. A serial killer preys upon her proud community, and the police are doing nothing. She takes the responsibility herself. Maynard May Sheffield. Going to go. Excellent. She takes the responsibility herself. Yeah, that's a good transgendered prostitute. Oof, and that's a tough one to write too, and definitely one that I think could really connect with readership or with viewers, because it's really speaking to the LGBT community in a time period where LGBT community is still definitely not really taken seriously, especially during the 80s. I don't know too much about where we were at during the 80s, but I know we're definitely not where we're at today. So when we think about a serial killer preying upon the LGBT community, and imagine, like, whether or not you're LGBT or not, imagine being a part of a community where you yourself are isolated and nobody's able to help you, right? So in a story like that, you'd be able to explore the themes of isolation, of fear, terror, things that really happen a lot in obviously serial killer stories, and being able to explore it through that character. Oof. And that sets up for a very underdog character, actually. And yeah, I like just dropped another underdog short this morning. So I was like thinking about underdog characters. So excellent. What do I got? So once I've asked myself what I want my character to achieve, my next thing I want to ask myself is, what do I want my character ideologies to be? So what do I want my character to believe? Belief is a very integral part of any experience. We all believe something. If you're here in the stream, I know you believe in something. Even if some people believe in nothing, that's still believing in something technically, right? And you want to start your groundwork of, what does your character believe in? Right? Because it makes it easy then to ask questions of like, okay, well, for a character who believes in this, what could be some possible strengths? What could be some possible weaknesses? Right? So once I set his or her, their belief, then I can create a character profile. Now, I do recommend doing a character profile if you're not if you're newer to the writing process and you haven't written a lot of stories before starting. If you're experienced, and let's say you have a number of stories in your belt, maybe you've been writing for years, then the character profile is fine to hold off until you're either partway through the drafting process or going on to the second draft. The reason being is, without experience, you're going to run into a lot of obstacles that will challenge your storytelling capability. And you'll end up writing extra scenes, extra chapters that end up might not working because it's not going to feel realistic to your character if you don't have a good understanding of who your character is. If you have some experience, you're going to be able to minimize wasting time. But if you're not experienced, by setting up a character profile, anytime you have to make difficult decisions, like you will make your life so much easier. Trust me, you will make your life a million trillion times easier by making a character profile. And if you're like, Kauffman, what's a character profile? What's that? Maybe you know, maybe you don't. You ask yourself, what are all the things that you would want to know about a character? Let's say if you yourself were going to apply for a job, or if you were going to apply to be in a group, or if you're going to apply to go to school, or if you're going to apply for the government, or if the government was going to do any type of like passport check or any type of application process, what would other people want to know about you? What do you want people to know about you on social media? What are like the things that we put out there? That's another great standard. Use those ideas and then put that into your framework for the types of questions and the types of things you want to set for your character. And all this stuff, it doesn't have to be set in stone. It's all right. Like the point of this is just have fun. When you're building the character, have literally like throw in as many fun things. Be like, you know what? My character's a human, but I love dragons. So I'm going to give him a pet dragon, because that's totally what I did with my dragonkin. And if it doesn't work out later, that's all right. That's all right. Remember, the number one goal is have fun. And the character development process can be such a great experience. You can do weaknesses, strengths. You already have your main core belief. You can do like who's their family, what have been tragic events, what's their favorite color, easy things like that. What's their favorite food? You could go in so many different directions, right? And you get to have as fun with this as you want to. And by creating this groundwork for the character profile, you've now established a basis for how you can now go into your story. And I think it's really powerful by setting up these three things before you start writing your character in the story. Now, a lot of writers do like to just hop straight into a story. But like I said, if you're experienced, great. If you're a newer writer, set the framework, at least for your protagonist. And if the question is like, oh, well, Kauffman, should I do that for all my supporting characters? What if I have a protagonist and then I got like 10 supporting characters? You can. You absolutely can. I think it depends on how active your supporting characters are going to be in your story. If you're going to have a best friend character who's basically in every chapter, do a character profile for them or do the same groundwork. If you have a character who's going to be in one chapter, probably not. For supporting characters, usually what I like to do, at least in a rough draft, is I like to have like what's one core theme I want them to represent. And then I leave it at that, and I'll come back and I'll refine their ideology and their mindset in the second draft. I let the creation process determine that. Let's see, Stephanie. I think with my first book, I did a poor job at character development, but understanding the characters before writing in a profile helps me write them better. That's interesting. And I'm not surprised to hear that, because a lot of the times in the writing process, we start off with usually like a blank slate, so to speak, but we have some idea or ideas on what is the type of story we want to tell. So a lot of writers like to just dig into it with, all right, let's just see what comes, because I'm writing from inspiration. And I think this is something really important to touch upon. Stephanie, thanks for sharing that. Something really important to touch upon is always trust your gut and your inspiration when it comes to writing. If you're the type of individual who you feel confident trusting in the creative process, do what feels right for you, because you're going to be able to create so much more things that resonate with you on a deep human level than if you're not trusting that part of the process, right? So I always like to think, I always like to come up with systems and standards for the average, but once again, rules are meant to be broken, right? These frameworks work well if you're still learning and still trying to like understand, like, okay, what do I do first? But that definitely happened. Like, I could definitely say that, because what happens during the rough draft, once you're writing the story, you actually get to a point where you're like, okay, I know very, very well, like, who my character is, and I know who they've become. So let's say that either maybe you did this step for creating a character, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you just hopped into it blind. What's the goal of your character during the rough draft? Goal during rough draft, at least as it pertains to character development. Your goal is to try as many different things as possible, right? Because the great thing is, the second draft, you can always go back. If you give your characters the ability to fly, to have telekinesis, to talk to animals, to do all these crazy things, that's great. You get to go back and refine it on the second draft. And then, right, you're like, hey, you know, these things kind of really sound super cool, but these other things don't really work that well. Then you can all build that into your character profile if you've already made one, or if you haven't, then it gives you opportunity to do it. So goal during the rough draft is to try new things with your character. Now, the last step that I'll give for this portion is, what is the goal with your character, right? So at the end of the day, at the end of the story, we want our readers, we want our audience to fall in love with our character. We want them to experience the love, the hate, the fear, the anxiety, the paranoia, the terror, and all the things that go into creating an excellent, engaging character. So, what's something to keep in mind? Keep in mind that we connect with characters through who we believe are showing real emotions, right? And think about your favorite character that comes to mind. If you're here in the stream right now, stop what you're doing for a second, close your eyes, and think about, what is the first character that comes to mind. It could be a character from a book, it could be a character from a TV show, from a movie. What's the first character that comes to mind? Maybe it's something you've watched recently, or maybe it's a favorite character. Drop it down in the comments. I'd love to hear what characters resonate with y'all. For me, I would say, okay, let me close my eyes. My favorite character, it's because it's been on my mind, Harry Potter. Actually, Voldemort. I'm going with Voldemort. Absolutely, Voldemort. Fun character. It's creepy. It's the opposite of love, right? The whole thing with the Horcrux. He's evil. The story is well done, and it is such a journey, right? And who doesn't remember? I remember the images from when I was reading through the books of my picture of Voldemort, and then seeing him portrayed on the screen, right, with the wands and the power, the magic, and all those things. And those, both the novel and the movie format, resonated with me. Of course, I was also influenced by, I'm gonna say, like 10 years ago, there was like a whole Harry Potter musical that was super funny. It's like a Harry Potter spoof musical, Star Kid Potter, and their version of Voldemort was hilarious. And I think that was on the tail end of Puppet Pals, of Potter Puppet Pals. And that's going back to OG YouTube, when we think of the OG YouTube days. I think that version of Voldemort I enjoyed just as much. Let's see, what do we got? Some other ones. Marta, Michael Jackson. Yes, Michael Jackson. Talk about a real life individual who created such a crazy character for himself, right? He went through so many different chapters and turmoils and things in his life. People will remember Michael Jackson until the end of time, whether or not they loved him, whether or not they appreciate him, or whether or not they dislike his morals or the things that he did, or they respect the things. Regardless, people will remember him because he made you feel a thing throughout one portion of his journey. Kevin on Glass. On Glass. Well, it was Glass. You're talking about the movie. I'm like, I want to make sure you're talking about the split, the trilogy, right? That's what I'm thinking with Glass. A character from my own story. Her name is Trinity. Stephanie. I love that. One of my favorite characters, actually, from one of my favorite screenplays I've written. It's like a feature length sci-fi screenplay. One of the major characters, her name is Trinity as well. Trinity is a great name. And I was like, when I think of Trinity characters that come to mind, of course, I think of Trinity from The Matrix. But Trinity is absolutely a great name. Harry Potter. Let's see. Atomic. When you already have a specific story plot in mind, I like this piece of advice I heard recently. Ooh, okay, let's see. We got some great wisdom over here. So Atomic, when you already have a specific story plot in mind, I like this piece of advice. Your hero is the one person who needs to change, who will struggle the most, both internally and externally, surviving the conflict. That is absolutely right. That is 100% on point. So a lot of what we've been chatting about so far is in how you go about developing a character. And real talk, I could probably go on for hours on character development. If I think some of like the shorts and some of the video stuff I've done before for like the pop culture stuff has probably received some attention. Previously, maybe I'll make like a character deep dive at some point for one of my future videos. That would be fun. I love talking about characters. There's one anything. There's so much that you can go into with character development, right? So far in this live stream, we're focused on like how do you create the character and how do you create it through the journey. But then that doesn't really touch on like what are all the obstacles that the character is going to have to go through. How do you go through the process of having a full hero's journey? How do you go through the process of having the character start in one version and then end all the way at the end of the story? Who your character is when they start is going to change by the end. Think about yourself, right? Put yourself in, put a character in your shoes for a second. Think about, where were you at 1 year ago? Where were you at in your life 5 years ago? At the core, you're still the same person, right? You're the same person you were from childhood. But what's changed is all your experiences, both good, bad, amazing, relationships, connections, family, things, all things that happen to you get layered on top and you evolve and adapt over time, right? But at the core, you're still the same you just evolve and become someone else. Same thing happens to your character, right? Now, the difference with the character is you're telling the story of the character's most important moment in their life. That is essentially like the best practice of like, why is the story about this protagonist? It should be the most extreme moment in your protagonist's life. Hence, that's why we're telling the story. Hence, that's why the story revolves around the hero. That's the undertone of the hero's journey and who your hero starts out with in the beginning is they're going to be a completely different reflection of who they are in the end because they've had to go through all these obstacles, trials, tribulations to grow throughout. That's absolutely some great advice, Atomic. Thanks for sharing, my friend. Okay, cool, Jessica. That's what I thought. I thought you were mentioning the trilogy, and talk about what an interesting trilogy, right? If you haven't seen the Unbreakable trilogy, Unbreakable, Split, and Glass, you should definitely check it out. I think they've done them all up on Netflix. Usually, when something goes up on a streaming service, you can tell either the actors are probably doing advertising for their new stuff, or that franchise is coming out with something new. I was curious to know if they're coming out with like a new franchise for that trilogy, or if they were like something was coming out because they advertised the heck out of that on Netflix. But those were really great characters. And I think it's interesting because Unbreakable goes into the category of the pre-Marvel days. That's like during the days of like X-Men. That's during the days of the original X-Men movies, right? And we think of the original Blade. We think of movies that were from that era who were about superheroes, the original Superman movies, original Batman movies from DC. We think of what was the superhero considered in, I want to say that's like 90s, 2000, and now how much it's changed and evolved, right? As a direct result of Marvel and DC. So it's a cool trilogy with some really interesting characters. I think what I love about that trilogy, Jessica, is it's it tried to do the anti-hero in a very interesting, compelling way. I think each of the movies have their own kind of niche, and I think they have a lot of fun with it. It's been a while since I've seen Glass, but I think I enjoyed Glass for the most part. I think I felt like there were some overall opportunities for the trilogy, but it's been so long I'd have to rewatch them. I was definitely considering though. Definitely some fun ones. Unbreakable is like it's like a subversive thriller. Split is definitely a high end. It's definitely a huge thriller. Split's a little more horror, and then Glass is kind of superhero-ish. So each of them definitely have different genres. So as I'm thinking back to my characters, what is your ultimate goal? So obviously the rough draft, you want to try new things, but what's your overall goal? You want to get to the point where your character is telling the story. Ultimate character goal. Your character is telling the story. And you see it loops back. It cycles back and it circles back to the beginning, right? We started off with an idea of what are the things we want them to represent. And then we get to this place where they are then able to express their ideas, their thoughts, their desires, their dialogue, and all that stuff through your head onto the page, because you've spent so much time writing about them. You've spent so much time doing the character profile and understanding them and getting them to a point that now they become believable. And most writers usually hit points in their story where their character becomes a part of them. And maybe it starts off a part of them if if the character is heavily based on themselves or heavily based on someone they know. So that's just one strategy of mine as I go about developing a character. And as you guys have seen from Last Scarecrow, I've been developing a lot of characters, but I've generally used a form of this strategy for Last Scarecrow. I used it for the three main characters. I used it primarily for Last Scarecrow and Pebble the Pixie. And then I did a little bit for Crow, but because of his untimely demise, when I made that realization, I was like, okay, he still need to be fully formed. However, his background is still going to influence the story beyond his death. So, yeah, I love it so much. I love character development. So I absolutely love that. With that character stuff in mind, feel free to ask any questions. If there's anything like about character development that you really want to know, or if there's any like struggles that you have with characters. Do you ever like you're working on a story and you're like, you know what? I've been working with this character for so long, but they're boring. Or maybe your character feels like they're too powerful and you don't know how to fix it. Or maybe you just have a bunch like too many characters in your story and you're not sure how to make them more exciting. Supporting characters, whole nother thing, because the character development process can be time consuming, right? And in the interest of time, probably because you have a job, you have responsibilities, you got all these other things, and I don't want you to get burnt out in life. Make the supporting characters a little easier on yourselves, at least during the rough draft stage. And that way you'll be able to focus really the core of your storytelling on the protagonist, and you get to explore the supporting characters throughout the story. If there's other ones you're like, you know what, these ones should be really big characters, then dive into them. The only thing stopping us from our creative endeavors is ourselves. Trust me, writer friends, I get it. I have been writing for 25 years now. I understand that idea very, very well. So if you're just dropping into the stream, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I'm just throwing up some questions, so Q&A. If you want to ask anything about characters, feel free to drop it down below. Or if you have a really cool character that you've created recently, you should definitely tell me about it. I love hearing about cool characters. So definitely share some character ideas, and that's what I got. So what we're going to do next, before I hop into my writing sprint, as we know, I'm so excited with Last Scarecrow. Before I hop into the writing sprint, are you enjoying the stream? Make sure to follow and subscribe. I do this live stream daily. Kauffman Writes is Monday through Friday. The Saturday Critique Show is on Saturdays, and Sundays is our new podcast segment. So stay tuned, be subscribed, and you'll be alerted when new stuff comes out. I also come out with new writing inspiration videos and short videos. I'm a multi-channel, multi-format. What's the right word? I'm a multi-format creator. So I do all the things and I enjoy the process while I do it. So follow and subscribe. And by the way, if you're coming from any one of the 5 social media platforms I'm streaming to, welcome. I have Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, and X, formerly Twitter. So I'm glad to have you here. Thanks for joining. Okay, so that brings us to our daily writing sprint. Okay, so today I'm going to make it a 30-minute sprint because I really wanted to spend that extra time diving into the character fun, the character journey, and that character shenanigans. So 30-minute writing sprint. I'm going to pull up on my end the Last Scarecrow. And we can't do a writing sprint without our music. And once again, I'm pulling up our Atomic Elf playlist number 2 by our very own Atomic Elf. Once again, let's give Atomic a round of applause for another great music playlist. Atomic, a full bit of applause. All right. And feel free to join me in the sprint if you're feeling super creative and you need to get your own writing done, whether that's brainstorming, writing, or editing. Or kick back and I'll write vicariously for the both of us. All right. 30 minutes on the clock. That's right. Hey, what's up, Silent? Welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome. We're just in the middle of our writing sprint. Hey, welcome, Silent. Thanks for dropping by. Let's see. Most people would agree the main protagonist should be a dynamic character as the book progresses. But how many changes should the character be subject to? And is there a suitable limit? I don't think there is a limit, in all honesty. I think the number of changes a character is subject to is based on the story you're trying to tell. Right? So I think it's going to depend entirely on what is your character's goals, what are your story goals, and what is the overall message, right? Because in one story, a character could go through 10 different changes and it could work. Another story that could go through 10 different changes and it will feel off. So I think it's entirely contingent on how well one knows their story and what they want to achieve. Absolutely. That's that's a really great idea. Thanks for bringing that up. I'm thinking through how many times I've sent Scarecrow through a change in this story, and Scarecrow. I would say I think he's now gone through two major. I think he's just gone through his third major-ish change, so to speak. And I think throughout the story overall, he'll probably go through about anywhere between 5 to 7. And then even on the rewrite, I'll ask myself, does that feel right? So great shout out. By the way, Silent, I hope your own writing and graphic stuff is coming out well for you. That's funny, John. Dang autocorrect. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's unfortunate. You're on with the Motorola that it's not letting you see the writing. Weird. I had the two screens on mine. Is it because it only shows you like the one screen, like the one that I'm on, as compared to it doesn't show you the writing screen as well? It's kind of funky. I'd have to. I really tried to make the writing portion as visible as possible for anyone who wants to read along throughout the journey. All right. All right. All right. All right. That was another really great writing sprint. I definitely got a good amount accomplished. I hope you're able to get some good writing, creative vibes in yourself. I knew that I had to finish off that last section that I was on with last Scarecrow. Kind of a little bit of a transition scene, just a little bit. We kind of provided a couple clues with gold scales and their dealings with the hags and kind of doing a little world building with the nest. And I really wanted to give the Scarecrow a moment of peace. This is probably the first peaceful moment the Scarecrow has had since the story began. Scarecrow deserves a moment of peace. Unfortunately, this moment of peace isn't going to last very long. Dun, dun, dun. Guess we'll find out on tomorrow's writing sprint. That's it. I think this music is working. That was a long one. Yeah, Atomic, this was a really good playlist. I really like the vibe of this one. I think what works is it has more of like, it goes back and forth between like a medium, slow, and fast paced. It has a nice range, which works. But it kind of makes sense because you threw all these ones together, or I know you sent them as individual files, but these ones felt like they just flowed together a little more naturally as these four. Whereas the previous set, I kind of had just randomly pieced together which ones it felt sounded right. So that was awesome. The music was literally like perfect. It was literally like perfect for the writing vibe, and especially with what these sections that I'm working on now. Oh, it's going to be great, especially for what I have in store for the next section, where we're about to have some fun shenanigans happening. I'm so excited to get into it. So, that probably puts me at what, 66? I think I'm at 66% maybe. I would say maybe that's like 66%. I'm like, that's fun. We've had like the nice so far, like the nest arc as a thing of like the story arc of the nest. They were saved by the older hag, brought up to the nest. They explored the nest. They traveled up. They sat down. We had the question scene where they basically got to ask 4 questions. We learned some backstory, which was great. And we also learned a little bit about some of the things that are happening. We learned some stuff about the first demon, the nothingness, and about the hags. It's about the overall state of the world. And now we're getting a little resting scene. And we definitely have some questions that need to be answered. What has happened to our dear skunk? What is the problem with making a deal with the hags? Is the last Scarecrow going to be able to resurrect our long lost quilt? For any of you that have been here since, I think I probably wrote that section of the story, probably in episode maybe like 25 to 45. I think that was the New City arc when we were originally introduced to Quilt, who Quilt is essentially a magic carpet, and was actually a very, very fun to just write and have fun with at that section, but has been an inanimate rug ever since. So that is another story arc we'll get to hop into. Let's see, Marta. When I write, I listen to bass boosted loud music. It helps me focus. I'm strange, I know. No, you're not strange at all. I feel like everybody has their own like writing vibe and writing style they like to get into. For me, my like mood changes. Sometimes I could be listening to music like this, where it's more instrumental. Other times I'll be listening to like TV shows or movies in the background, and sometimes that kind of creates like a white noise for me. Other times I'll listen to like EDM or sometimes musicals or just different varieties of music. I think it really just depends on like A, what your personal preference is, and B, sometimes it also helps like what type of story that you're wanting to write, because like music creates the mood, right? And then the mood we're inspired by, and then we create fun stories. So that's awesome. That's cool to know that that's your jam of music. Ooh, all right. So that was a great writing sprint. All right. Thanks for joining me on that writing sprint. That was fun. That was exciting. So, as I look ahead to the morrow, creative writing on the morrow, what do we have in store this weekend? So, while I'm continuing to travel, I'm still out of my studio. So, what I will be doing, we'll still have our Saturday story and critique show. So, don't forget, if you want an excerpt of your story read, send the excerpt to the creative ghostwriter at gmail.com. I think right now I have like between 5 to 7 submissions. So definitely get your story sent over. If I can get through all of them tomorrow, I absolutely will. It's a fun experience if you've never been there. Saturday was previously our best show. Now our weekends are looking to be very, very popular. But yeah, so it's fun. I'll read your story. I do a bunch of different story readings, caters to my acting background. So I make sure it's a fun experience. And then I do live critiques on air. So definitely join for tomorrow for the Saturday story reading and critique show. That will be fun. And I enjoy the process. And then on Sunday, last Sunday, I launched the first episode of Creative Right Now podcast. I will be returning with episode 2 next weekend while I'm out of the studio. I might do something special Sunday. I'm still kind of going back and forth. Or I might just do more of a writing sprint. Maybe we could do another writing prompt. I think one of the things I did like from the podcast was the AI prompt. Playing around with a couple ideas. So we'll see. I'll chat more about my Sunday show tomorrow. So yeah. And by the way, as you're figuring out like, okay, so this live stream was a cool experience. What should I watch next? Well, I got just the thing for you. What should you watch next? Do you need motivation to just write a story? Well, you're in luck. I actually just launched a brand new video right before the stream, and I will pull up the thumbnail. So the video I just launched, here's the thumbnail for it. The video is called, Do You Need Motivation to Write a Story? It is on my YouTube channel, so you should hop over there next, go check out the video. It's probably right now one of my longest videos, coming in at about 12 to 15 minutes. I'm playing around with different formats to see things that work. And I'm also playing around with different thumbnails. But the video itself is probably one of the first videos that are focused purely on inspiration and motivation that I've done in this series of Kauffman Writes videos. There's 7 common problems that I touch into, 7 common problems that every writer deals with. Every problem, I have a motivational, inspirational thing. I have a logistical strategy to help you overcome it. And then I talk about my process. So there's some really good stuff over there. Make sure you check out the video, like it. Let me know that you enjoyed it. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. All right. And as you're hopping out of the stream, show some love. Tap that like button. I appreciate your time. This has been another great stream of Kauffman Writes. That is all that I got for you today. I have really enjoyed today. Always let me know if you found value out of our stream today, if you enjoyed the character development deep dive, because I'll be back with Fiction Character Friday next Friday. And don't forget, creative writers, words are wind, but stories are forever. Stay creative, writers, because I'll catch you on the morrow. Thanks